Hi there, my name is Pilani Bubu and I'm very happy to be back at the Civil Tech Innovation Forum and Jam Fest. I'd like to perform a song called Sweet Love for You, just to set up a sentiment of humanity and caring and just to set a tone for you. I wanna go to a place where love resides. Said I wanna go to a place that's warm like the summer sun. Said I wanna see a smile or two, sunshine, rainbows, seashells and flowers. Said I've never failed the way I did when I first found your heart, sweet love. Said I wanna do these things that only lovers do. Said I wanna laugh with you, I wanna sing with you, I wanna dance with you. Sweet love, sweet love, sweet love, sweet love, sweet love, sweet love. I figured it would sound a little something like this. You're the only one for me. Sweet love, sweet love, sweet love, sweet love, sweet love. Even when the seasons change, I think we just want to lean into love for those we care for. So, and when the summer turns to winter, I'll still cuddle love, all that we share inside my love. And when it's cold, I want to moan with you.
We won't wait. We won't run. We'll conjure up the courage we need to create solutions for our homeland.
Our Africa.
With our courage, we will innovate for our time.
We will raise up a new generation of independent actors who, with us, will build a new tomorrow.
We won't wait. We won't run.
We'll do it ourselves. We are #DIY Africa.
Welcome to #DIY Africa, presented by the Civic Tech Innovation Forum and Jam Fest.
Hello and a warm welcome to Jam Fest. We've been jamming to some music. The event is co-hosted by the Civic Tech Innovation Forum. Thank you for joining us from all across the continent and the rest of the world for this year's festival under the theme DIY Africa. My name is Ashna Kalemera and I am a program manager at CIPESA. CIPESA is the Collaboration on International ICT Policy for East and Southern Africa. And I'm coming to you live from Kampala in Uganda. I will be facilitating this panel discussion on a topic very dear to me, digital rights and civic tech. The session is co-hosted by the Civic Tech Innovation Forum, our hosts, and Jam Lab in collaboration with Paradigm Initiative, Africa Digital Rights Network, and ourselves here at CIPESA. We will be exploring digital rights and how the digital rights and civic tech communities can work together. To start off, housekeeping, of course. If you can, please share and tweet today's conversation on social media using the hashtag CTIF21 and DIY Africa. I'll say those again, hashtag CTIF21 and hashtag DIY Africa. We really want this discussion to be interactive, so please use the chat function for any questions directed to our speakers and for comments and queries. The session will unfortunately only be in English. We apologize for that. There'll be no interpretations for other languages. And just so you're aware, the session will be recorded and will later be publicly available on various digital platforms so that others who have not had the opportunity to join us live today can play catch up. Joining me today are four distinguished panelists, three at the moment, but we hope for one to join later on. Our first panelist is Peace Oliver Amuge. Peace is the Executive Director at Women of Uganda Network. She's a communication specialist, a gender rights activist, and a writer, and also works as a consultant with development partners. She has authored a couple of online publications on topics related to women's digital rights. Peace is a working group member of the Global Internet Governance Forum on Strengthening and Strategy. She's also a faculty member of the Arusha Women's School of Internet Governance, a research sprint fellow, and a board member of the Center for Multilateral Affairs. You're very welcome, Peace. Second panelist is my very good friend, Grace Gitaiga. We call her Gigi. She's the convener at the Kenya ICT Action Network, also known as KitchenNet. KitchenNet is a multi-stakeholder platform for people and institutions interested and involved in ICT policy and regulation. Her role entails managing KitchenNet's activities, which touch on policy advocacy and regulation in the information, communication, and technology sector, including through research and training, coordination and moderating ICT or media policy and regulation debates, amongst others. She is a media personality as well and hosts a television talk show titled Take on Tech on Kenya's national broadcaster, the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, KBC. The talk show explores technology concepts and debates with a panel of experts. Very welcome, Grace. Our third panelist is Gabriela Razzano. She's the Executive Director and co-founder of the Civic Technology Lab, Open Up. She's a Senior Atlantic Fellow in Social and Economic Equity and a former Senior Research Fellow at Research ICT Africa. She has significant legal and research consulting experience on data governance and digital policy across Africa. She's a holder of an LLB from the University of Cape Town, and she graduated with distinction in sociology. She formerly clerked with the Justice Jacob of the Constitutional Court and has also worked with the University of Wits, as well as with a variety of domestic and international non-government actors. Our fourth panelist yet to join will be Rigobert Kenomon, Program Officer of Francophone Africa at Paradigm Initiative. He's Cameroonian and works as a journalist, researcher, and writer. His role at Paradigm Initiative as the Program Officer for Francophone Africa involves research and the promotion of digital rights, digital inclusion, and internet freedom. Prior to joining Paradigm Initiative, Rigobert worked as a Google Policy Fellow for Paradigm Initiative. He's also a member of several civil society organizations in Cameroon. Once again, you're all very welcome, the speakers and the participants. Without further ado, I will let the experts take the floor and we'll explore a few questions as part of the session. So first, I'll go with Peace, and we will like to hear from you on what your understanding of digital rights is, and particularly from a women or gender perspective.
Thank you very much, Ashna. I'm really happy to share this virtual floor with the great ladies and the gentleman in his absence. And it's nice to have you all participants dialing from the different cities and country you're dialing in from. So when we talk about digital rights, my understanding is that digital rights is a human rights and legal rights that allow individuals, to access, to use, to create and be able to really share, content on digital platforms. And it also allows you to publish. So that is my understanding of digital rights, and which may include like right to privacy, right to access, freedom of expression, right to freedom of association. So that's really my understanding of digital rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Piss. And is there any context within digital rights should be understood where it applies to women and women's rights?
Yes, definitely. When we talk about digital human rights, it should be inclusive. It should be inclusive to include both women and men, to include all the minorities, the sexual minorities, the cultural minorities. So yes, it should include all the gender, the different genders. Thank you.
Thank you, Peace. Good to hear. Digital rights are all encompassing and all inclusive by gender, by nationality, by rural, urban dwelling, by sexuality, etc. Gabriela, as a civic tech practitioner, does the description just shared now of digital rights echo, and what's the link with civic tech, if any?
Yeah. Well, I think you can understand digital rights in two kind of ways. You can understand digital rights in the kind of legal and policy sense, which is to speak about very particular kind of rights that have digital dimensions, if you will. So that's where you get your data protection, your data security, say, or access to internet as a particular kind of digital right. So you have that kind of, particular policy understanding of or framing for legal rights. But I mean, I think for like civic technology practitioners, the digital rights can be understood in like a broader, more utilitarian kind of way. And that's to think of, the digital as a new kind of realm, or a different kind of realm, or a particular kind of realm, not necessarily that different, actually. And when we consider a lot of the risks that are offline are the same as online, they just have different nuances. So when you think of digital rights as rights which exist in a particular realm, you can also think of digital rights as the manner in which the digital either creates opportunities to advance rights, particular kinds of rights, which don't necessarily need to be those digital dimensions, but also, understanding the kinds of particular risks that exist in the digital realm, in trying to give expression or enact your rights and give effect to your rights, that kind of thing. So for us in the civic tech world, I think it has like a much more broader practical kind of meaning. I waffled at the end there, but I think you get it.
Thank you so much, Gabriela. And are there any specific examples you can point to at the intersection of civic tech and digital rights? Open up, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, I think the great thing about digital rights, but actually human rights discourse more broadly, or human rights broader than just digital rights, is it creates a really great normative underpinning to a lot of civic technology work, and provides us with a kind of a grounding that is often not strong, given that a lot of civic technology emerges from technologists who have a strong kind of technical background, but often not that kind of social and political background. So I think it provides a great normative underpinning, and also, you know, an entire remit of legal avenues for pursuing different kinds of work. But I mean, civic technology we've got lots of examples of, we've created civic technology which helps to advance certain kinds of digital rights. So for instance, the creation of public participation channels for enhancing local government and between citizens and local government, which kind of intersects not just with public participation, but it's sort of access to internet and accessibility components. I think we've also created tools that enable digital rights protectors, which is another way of kind of thinking of it. I mean, I know a lot of people do work, for instance, on the protection of, you know, security, online digital security and stuff like that for activists. That's a very practical way of seeing how digital rights protectors can be, you know, advanced through civic technology. But we, for instance, have developed case management software for paralegals working with different kinds of communities, which I think in itself can be a form of, you know, at least advancing digital rights. And I think, you know, we've got a lot of examples of sort of also using technology to advance digital rights awareness, you know, so there's some particular kinds of rights awareness activities that we've done, say evictions guides, that has more to do with you know, offline rights, but, you know, I think those can easily have digital dimensions. So there's a couple of examples.
Thank you so much, Gabriela. From your intervention, I've picked up that some of the tech tools able to raise or support the raising of awareness, give citizens voice, and provide access to information, amongst others. You also mentioned 3 Ps that are the language that Gitaiga speaks: public participation and policy. So Grace, let's hear from you. What is the policy landscape for digital rights and civic tech, if you may, and public participation in the same from your experience at Kenya ICT Action Network? But before I give you the floor, I see that Rigobert joined. Rigobert, you're welcome. We will give you the floor as we proceed. Grace, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ashna, and my fellow panelists and all the participants. We appreciate your time in this panel. In the understanding, I want to start with in understanding the issue of what digital rights are. And apart from what Peace and Gabriela have raised, I think we have forgotten the element of the fact that digital rights must also allow access and use of devices for the information that we share, you know, for accessing. And, you know, they include computers, they include mobile technologies, and, you know, they include communication networks. For example, if you still want to access and you want to create, you want to publish, but for example, you don't have a functional internet, where we have continued to see, you know, internet shutdowns, especially in Africa and in times of citizens agitation, then of course you're denying people their digital rights. If, for example, you're using your mobile phone and you know the mobile phone has become everything to everyone, but then you're being surveilled, or you know your communication is being intercepted, then of course that interferes with the digital rights. And so the rights must also, when we think of rights, apart from issues of access, of publishing, of creating, we must also insist that the tools to allow us to perform those tasks must also be accessible and must be free. Now, you've raised the issue of public participation. I think in terms of, you know, when we talk about civic, sorry, my phone, I forgot. When we talk about issues of civic rights, I think what we need to know is that digital rights really are not different from what in the offline world we call human rights, and therefore they also need to enjoy certain protections, be they legal, be they regulatory, to allow people to exercise freely. So, looking at digital rights and civic tech, how does that work together? And in terms of public participation. So we look at civic tech as those technologies that then have been used in governance, or are used for advocacy, or are used for public participation. And in our case, for example, as Kictanet, we use digital platforms. We have an engagement platform where we are able to bring different diversified voices on a particular issue. And usually it's about digital rights because, we push for public interest in this right. We push for public interest in policies. We push for the right to regulation with rights enshrined in our constitutions. And so we use the tools to agitate for this for this right. And how we do it is that we encourage people to actually participate, to bring in their voices into an issue, where then we bring in these issues together and actually send them or present them to the policymakers, so that we are saying, yes, this is happening, and governments are becoming clever, so there's issues of regulation. But we're also saying, as you regulate, please, this is where we draw the line, because these are our rights, as we need to enjoy them. We need to enjoy them in the in the tech world, and so we see that intersection where the technologies then provide us with that platform where we can reach those we are not able to reach physically, and tell them what it is that we think should happen or we want as part of our rights. Thanks, Ashna.
Thank you very much, Grace. So it's one thing to have the platforms in place that enable more civic participation or social accountability or transparency in governance, etc. It's another thing to ensure that there's access to said platform. Said platform enables privacy and data protection, and it's inclusive, to Peace's earlier point around women and other marginalized or minority groups, and ultimately that the policy and legislative landscape is favorable for the two, right? Thank you, Grace. So Rigobert, I think against that background, you should be able to present to us tools or strategies that are at the intersection of civic technology and digital rights, i.e. Reporti and Ayata. Let's hear from you.
Thank you, Kashma. Thank you to be there for this discussion on the major topic, Civic Dash and digital right, or digital right and Civic Dash. And before to go, for example, and share the new tools as Ayata and Reporti, I want just to say that for me, digital right is a human right online. Human right online, why? Because with digital right, we have more right principle, and then digital right could or can help to respect digital human right in each country. But also, digital right is a way to protect the human right in each country. And then we can base our knowledge, our skill on that to make some improvement, to make some engagement, and then change situation for human rights. I think Civic Dash or Civic Dash user online can globally contribute to ameliorate digital right, but also ameliorate human right by helping by digital right. Yes, a Paradigm Initiative developed two elements. or two tools to ensure that in the civic Dash or in our life online, we can try to change something. Yes, it is difficult to have a good life, but we can try with these two new tools. There are no double paradigm to work to be ensured that all is okay. Give me a second to share my screen, then you can see how we can work with Ayata and reporting, because it's very important to know, for example, how we can report or what is exactly reporting, and then they can help to understand very well what is this new tool. Just a second, I think all is okay. I think all is clear because you see my screen here. Yes, I know my screen is online. I think it is good. Yes, Civic Dash, digital right and Civic Dash, for me, it is good to see the challenges, but it is also good to see the opportunities. And the opportunities, we can safeguard the opportunities by using digital right, because now we are in COVID-19 context. We organize this session, and it is possible to understand our voice over the world. And then we can, by this innovation, and the innovation to help us to organize this session online. And then we can see the first part as opportunity, and after the challenges. And this opportunity or challenge, we have some few plans of activity of the discussion. And then my context is that digital right help offer the human right, as I said, and the speed of change in the digital world has created real challenge and opportunities with technological innovation. I can talk about artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, or blockchain. There are opportunities, but there are real problems in the regulating in digital space. And if we decide to block or to say no, artificial intelligence is bad because we can have some problem with privacy, we can have problem with data and so on, we can lose the opportunities. Then it will be good for us to ensure that all is okay and try to drop the challenge. We can also say about digital right and innovation. Today, it is not possible to build an innovation without digital right, because when we see the world, when we see how we develop the world, it is very important to include in each application some element on digital right, confidentiality, terms of service. I think for us in Africa, when we check a website, maybe the website, government website, and so on, we don't have a lot of information of confidentiality policy. We don't have a lot of information of terms of service. And then we think that if we try to respect and join this on our innovation, digital right, it will be good to develop very well. The new tool today provides an answer to the challenges of the digital space. Our Paradigm Initiative has developed two tools as Ayata and reported this response from Paradigm Initiative. And what is Ayata really? Ayata is a proactive toolkit for African digital right actors. Because when Paradigm Initiative developed the Ayata toolkit with support of Transport Digital Society Lab and Kingdoms of Netherlands, it is because there are a lot of problems in digital space. And the answer is to be ensured that the side of security for journalists, for civil society actors, for user online, for us, because we discuss here, it is not possible for us to ensure that all is okay in our security online. Then it's very important to know that, for example, we can know how we can meet our our mic. We can remove some link in our computer. It is very important, and the toolkit is a very key toolkit for people who work online, because you can work as policemen. Policemen try to ensure securities of people, but sometimes the policemen can become in insecurity situation. That is very important to ensure for him that this is what you can do if you have a problem, and it's very important to have it in Ayata. And Ayata, because since the reports of digital rights in Africa from Paradigm Initiative since 2019, we mentioned that over the past decade, there has been an increase in the impacts of African organizations championing digital rights, affordable and quality internet connectivity, privacy, freedoms of opinion, expression and association, among others. And it shed contrast to this renaissance of digital rights among citizens on the continent, the visions of African government regarding the roles of internet connectivity and digital access space. And then the reality is that to develop this tool is to help everyone online to ensure and to be sure that the security is there, to have an on control on the security, because it's not possible, for example, as I say, yes, when we work in with an organization, we can work with our specialist digital security specialist, maybe in the office. But when we go at home, it's not possible to have this colleague beside us. We should try to know something about digital right, about security on our app. In this document, because this a document with chapter, we can have all information just to present the summary, because it is possible to have the links of Ayata. There are also a game beside the toolkit. We can know all information on digital security during the activities, during the event, during the conference, information on internet shutdown, the reason and the motivation to create a toolkit for everyone, and know how we can ensure a good digital practice, digital agent practice, and so on, but also to ensure that we can set up in our account, Facebook, Twitter account, and to ensure that we are in security space. The civic Dash and digital right, I think for me, Ayata today can help to raise some solution beside a month of challenges. This we can see the document on the Paradigm Initiative website, and it is possible to have all the information. Now, the second tool is reporting. Reporting is different for Ayata, because reporting was born as a result of the causes of many violations in the continent. And for example, for some countries, when we report a lot of violation in the country, for example, Democratic Republic of Congo, but also it is country like Cameroon, like Chad, and so on. And sometimes in the countries, it's not possible to raise the issues in the pressure context, or to avoid some political issues after raising your problem, maybe on social media, or maybe on television, or on radio. And then report is to solve this problem. And on report it is possible to address the issues in English and French, and report the violation directly on the platform. And after reporting the violation, it is possible to discuss with responsible of case in your region, to discuss with experts and then to start a litigation process without create an issues on your life and the lives of your family. Because today, you know that a lot of internet shutdown, a lot of digital rights violation is around political issues. For example, for the countries I raised before, GIC, Cameroon, Chad, and so on, we understand that during internet shutdown in these countries, it is because government want to shut or block some political movement. And then if you try to raise the problem, it is like you play the game with these people against government. And then the problem will be great. The platform is there to ensure that we can report the violation over the country in Africa, and to be ensure that the security of our case or our life is ensured. This globally how we can understand on reporting. Now, how to report a violation on reporting? It is just a 4 or 3 step. You can go to the reporting website, www.reporting.africa.com. .africa, so .africa is okay, on your PC, on your mobile device, and then go to make a report and report your case by filling in the various drop-down menu and apply to you and click to submit. And someone will contact you through the information to know what is the real problem you try to raise. And then it is possible if you raise the problem, for example, in Togo, reporting work with a law member or law network in Togo, reporting the committees of reporting of Paradigm Initiative to try to create a contact with you to be ensured that in your country, you can have a solution of problem raising before. Then that helps to work as intermediary and solve the problems of internet violation, internet shutdown, cybersecurity problem, mass control, blocking the website, arrest of journalists, mass surveillance, and so on. Or globally, when the government try to increase the price of communication because it is a problem or issues to access in the website or in the platform online, then can raise the issues, and then reportee member can try to solve the problem without creating issues with reporter of the case. That is what I can say for these two tools, and I will finish by conclude that the current challenges of the digital space must be treated with the great diligence. It is the problems of all, of everyone, on online or offline, because the some policymakers don't really active online, but we need some decision from them to change the situation. This is very important. And digital rights must respond to these challenges without seizing the opportunities that technological innovation brings to society. This is what I can say, and I say thank you. Thank you. My name is Rigobert Kemunye. I work as program officer at Francophone Africa with Paradigm Initiative. Thank you to be there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rigobert. I think the slight change in the speakers and presentation actually worked out perfectly, because after the context setting that Peace, Gabriela, and Grace were able to share, we've now been able to see some live examples of how tech-based tools can support documentation and reporting of digital rights violations and relevant developments in countries. I will pause for a second to see if there are any Q&As that have come through. Nothing there, and I don't see anything in chat. but I'll give an opportunity, just a minute, for the attendees to either share some comments or questions via the chat function before I move on with the speakers.
I see the hand from Gabriela.
Yes, go ahead, Gabriela. You're not an attendee, but yeah, please have the floor.
Yes, I am here also to coordinate. Yes.
I might not be a speaker. I'm an avid speaker. That's how I decide. Very keen speaker. No, I was just thinking, it was just a provocation that I was thinking of a little, and it's something I think we think about a lot. Where we think not just about, say, from the civic technology side, what civic tech offers digital rights, but what digital rights offers civic tech is the other side of it, and that's values and normative framings and those kinds of really important things, particularly for communities that aren't necessarily well versed in that kind of thing. But there is something we, like, I think as human rights activists, we sometimes skim over. And there's been some really great work done recently on, like, the wicked problem of AI governance and these kinds of things, which is that there are limitations to a rights framing sometimes that we need to address and think about if we really want to advance our work. And some of those limitations are, sometimes rights framings have a really difficult time in dealing with, like, structural inequalities, because it focuses so much on individual rights, us as rights holders and those kinds of, and expressing those rights through courts and those kinds of things, that I think that sometimes doesn't help to deal with some of the structural impediments that stop people from being able to, live their best lives, which is really the goal that a lot of us want, And so I think it's interesting sometimes to think about those limitations. I think, regionally, we're more advanced in our rights discourse already, because we talk about collective rights, because we talk about socioeconomic rights that are justiciable. In other countries in the world, we have types of socioeconomic rights you can't even take to court. You know what I mean? Like, so we're a very different context. We're an advanced rights culture, I think, in this region. But, there are sometimes limitations to our understanding of rights that then trickle into these new areas where we're trying to do this work. It's just a thought I was putting out there.
Thanks, Gabriela. Any immediate reactions from the other speakers to Gabriela's point on
Thank Gabriela. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so there's a question that's come through on chat. Go ahead, Rigobert.
Yes. The question from Kiji. Please excuse me if you know. Saying for this, what are the new trends of digital rights in context of COVID-19? Are there any new scaling for organization human capital and funding? Yes. Around COVID-19, we can say, for me as a researcher, this the areas of new digital rights. Why new digital rights? Because we see, for example, for the countries like I raised, this up South Africa and inside, we see some strategy used by government because, for example, the case for Chad. The governments of Chad use problems of COVID-19 situation to increase the problems of control in the country. For example, close the border with the reasons of COVID-19, more control, more informations of privacy. Today we talk about test people before travel. I think it's a new visa. It's a new visa because it is possible today to have a passport and to have a lot of problems to go here and another place. I think for me, because the digital space here in that period or in this period with COVID-19, it is very important to raise our voice and try to say, yes, that is good, but we can make a good change to avoid the big challenges in next 10 years. And for the organization, we think it's also the moment to change the behavior, to change the understanding of human rights, to change also the understanding of human rights online, because human right online is digital right. And then if we have a wrong definition of human right offline, it is possible to have a wrong definition or wrong comprehensions of digital right, because these two are linked. And I think for me, the consequences of COVID-19 with some problem raising on data privacy place, or mass control, mass surveillance, problem with the biometric and so on. I think this is new challenges for me in the age of new digital right. And they affect the organization, they affect the human right, they affect the digital right. And I think the support and so on will be work on this to avoid to create a problem, economical problem and so on in the world and in each country with strong issues. This is what I can say around the question or comment from Ali. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rigobert, for taking the first shot at Howie Kijiji's question. I think it's actually a very, very good question in the context of this discussion. And I mean, we've all seen that digital rights and civic technology have become very prominent issues during the pandemic. On the one hand, we see many dashboards or tools and applications that have enabled transparency and accountability around COVID-19 funds and donations in many countries. It has also enabled access to information for health and vaccines across the continent. But at the same time, there's been innovation around disease surveillance that is tech-based, and in both cases, there are implications on human rights, be it access to health, be it access to education, or freedom of expression, rights to assembly, etc. So I'd really, really like to have Peace, Gabriela, and Grace also weigh in on this question before we can proceed to the next. I know it's off script, but it's quite pertinent to the discussion. Peace, would you like to go first?
Yes, Ashna. I think we really talked about it, and I think also I really agree with most of the things he said. But I really think something that really the issue of privacy, and we've seen government, we've seen civil society organizations really running around and asking how, because we saw mass data collection, private personal data being collected, and nobody knew how long would this data be retained, and what would it be used for, and who are the people who are holding this data. At the same time, we had the pandemic that was hitting us so bad. So I think the issue of privacy was something that really was trending. And yes, and I really agree with what Rigobert said. So yeah, that would be something that I could just add on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peace. Grace, any thoughts on how the civic tech and digital rights landscape has evolved during COVID-19? And the second part of the question, which explores how, if there's any scaling for organization capital and funding. ADRF.
Thanks, Ashna. I think I want to start with the last one and tell how we the issue of funding, actually the issue of resources, continues to remain a challenge, especially for digital organizations that are working. Oh, sorry, I switched off my camera. For digital organizations that are working on digital rights. And therefore, we see donors have not changed, especially those who fund this work. And so, they keep changing their priorities. So you find every 3 years, there's a change of priority. And I think because I don't have hard and fast answers, the question that we should be asking ourselves and having honest conversations about is this question of, how can then organizations or even people be well-resourced in ways that they are able to respond to emerging issues and in a timely fashion. We know that digital rights, just like in the same way as the internet, the way the internet continues to evolve, the way the internet is dynamic, we've also seen that in the same way with digital rights. They continue to evolve practically every new day, and there are new challenges that come up every time. So how do we all respond to that? And I think that's a question I have no answers to, but it's a question that that we must agree to discuss honestly. Now, during COVID, we have actually seen a lot of, more people embrace use of online spaces. For example, schools have, more schools were forced to teach on online platforms. Hospitals, some were forced to prescribe medication online or through the phone because they also did not want people to go to hospitals to avoid catching, COVID. But what does this mean to people who have no access? So we continue to see that the issue of access actually has continued to be widened, because even in places like, let me give the example of Kenya, there was internet in Nairobi and in the cities, but in the rural areas, we just found that children could not attend the online classes. And so that brought in an issue of access. Why were they not able to get online? It's because they were not able to access either platforms. It's because maybe the internet was expensive and therefore raised the issue of affordability, and therefore inclusion actually has continued to increase during that, and especially to highlight the issue of the have-nots and the haves in terms of, the digital ecosystem. So I think for us in the sector and those of us who are working in this is a lesson. And I think it's a wake-up call that we cannot continue, we can't afford to be comfortable, that we must always be prepared to, we must always be prepared to respond to emerging needs. And like the joke, that is always made about, that in 2015, everyone who was asked to predict, where do you want to see yourself in 5 years from now, that they all gave wrong predictions because nobody actually spoke about COVID in 2020. I think the other thing that has emerged during COVID, it's the whole issue of, yes, there were these people who never utilized online platforms, but you have these who utilized the platforms. And therefore we continued, and we continue to see a rise in cyber incidents that affected people in really small ways. So for example, in Kenya, where there's so much use of M-Pesa, we found that there were new fraud cases being, happening on the phone. So, somebody sends you a message, it looks real. They have sent you money, somebody says they have sent you actually money, they made a mistake, they missed one number, and that money ended up in your account. And if you are not careful, if you have a good heart, you found yourself returning that money, yet it was not true that money was actually being taken from you. There were all these fraud cases, the government is distributing these to help people sign on to this. But before, you can benefit, you need to pay a certain amount of money as admin fee, administration fee. So we've seen a lot of rise in cyber, cases, and therefore we need, people's cyber rights actually were being breached just using the very same devices that we have said allow for access and allow for the digital rights. So, the issue of balancing actually then becomes very clear. For example, it raises the issue of awareness, and I guess that's a task for those working in this sector, raising awareness for those who don't know, a lot of education on this, on what are digital rights and where do we draw the line, and so forth. We also had during COVID, I think a rise in, young girls and schoolgirls, becoming pregnant, and many of them, who are interviewed say they met the culprits on social media, and because they were home for so long, and they had maybe a phone or they had access to the social media, then we found that this, their rights were actually being breached because, these were fraudsters posing as legitimate people, as genuine people, and they ended up, cheating these girls. So I wanted to stop there, Ashna, and yeah.
Thank you very much, Grace. Very elaborate and insightful submission. Gabriella, do you have anything to add in terms of developments in the context of COVID-19 and resourcing human or funding?
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to flag on the resourcing that we did a really nice session on Tuesday on funding and the funding environment, which I'd also encourage people to have a look at generally. I think, the COVID context it's been an accelerant, it's been an accelerant of both opportunities and risks in the digital realm, which on some level has been quite frustrating. I think, the problem with COVID-19 accelerating the rate at which, people become on, and I think often the public sector becomes cognizant of the real utility of, the digital space for the delivery of services or whatever, is that we're still not in a position where the foundations, the good foundations on like data protection, digital rights awareness, all those good foundations that digital rights activists have been speaking about for the last 10 years, those foundations are still not there. But they're growing, let me not be a total cynic today, but they're not adequate, they're not sufficient, but we're accelerating digital services and digital public sector digital projects very quickly, so that can sometimes be frustrating. I think there is, and also the wicked problem of our time is inequality, and as Grace has raised twice and very rightly, I think if anything else, COVID should have been a stark reminder of how the really basic structural necessities for digital inclusion are still not in place. South Africa still has low, internet penetration rates. Our data is, some of the most expensive in the world. All those really foundational ICT rights things that people have been discussing for 15 years are still not adequately dealt with. But then we're starting to design, AI policies and things like that, with a lot of those basic structural necessities not in place. And that affects civic tech. There are certain communities that we work with that we weren't able to engage with, or really struggled to engage with during COVID-19. And we're in Cape Town. Do you know what I mean? That's ridiculous. And so I think it's a really good time for, digital rights activists to use it as an opportunity to bang on the same drum, about foundational access and digital inclusion and, accessibility and protections. It's our same rallying calls, and use this as an opportunity to try and remind different actors that these are still our priorities and these remain our priorities.
Thanks, Gabriela, and thank you all. And above all, thank you, Howie, for this very, very relevant question. Stepping out of my moderator's shoes for a second and to run a public service announcement. CIPESA in 2019 launched the Africa Digital Rights Fund. It is aimed at providing flexible and rapid response funding to initiatives and organizations that are working at the intersection of technology and human rights and civic participation, etc. Of course, at the launch, COVID-19 was not on our radar either, but the fund has been very responsive to the emerging challenges and opportunities that COVID-19 presents. And to date, since its launch 2 years ago, we've funded over 40 initiatives with a total sum of just below $600,000 to try and address some of these challenges, with some of them very context specific to COVID-19, including on issues such as misinformation or digital literacy, digital resilience for organizations. We recognize that as part of movement building, it will not always be the case that the more established usual suspect organizations are at the forefront. There are a lot of grassroots initiatives that are doing commendable work and should be capacitated and resourced to continue doing so, both at grassroots level, but also at national level. But unfortunately, in some cases, funding priorities for the bigger foundations or donor entities change, like Grace pointed out, or even in other cases, these initiatives do not meet the requisite requirements to be able to submit proposals or have in place management capacity requirements that these bigger funding organizations require. So the ADRF, the Africa Digital Rights Fund, tries to bridge that gap, and we are really pleased that, for some of the efforts, for instance, that KitchenNet is undertaking, we've been able to support them in the context of COVID-19 and understanding and documenting surveillance and privacy, especially with respect to women's rights and inclusion, not only in Kenya, but many other countries. End of commercial break. I will go back to the chat and see what has been raised there. So thank you, Nati. Nati is with the Civic Tech Innovation Network. He's pointing out that the network would like to better connect and support Africa's civic tech community, and would love to hear from you about how we can best do this. They have a quick survey for which they would appreciate your views and insights, and the link is in the chat. So please pop over and provide your views. I think Civic Tech and all of us in this room really appreciate feedback and comments from other actors who have sometimes more experience than us, or who can provide insights that we probably we were not aware of, and they help in designing interventions and just making sure that we're all more inclusive and more responsive to the developments. I'll pause again and see if anyone wants to raise a query or a comment in the chat before we go back to the script. The link, Nati, are you able to reshare the link? There's a participant who says he's not able to see it. Please reshare it to everyone, not just hosts and panelists. Oh, thank you, Grace. She shared the video that was produced with support from the Africa Digital Rights Fund on COVID-19 data breaches. I believe it covers Kenya and Uganda, right? Great. So we have about 30 minutes left. So I will, since there are no questions in the chat or Q&A, I will ask the panelists, we'll go around and just hear from each of you on how the two sectors or the two communities can better collaborate, digital rights actors and the civic tech community. Gabriela pointed to the fact that it should be a two-way flow, not a one-way flow. So I'd be keen on hearing your views on how that relationship can better be built and ensure that, you know, the traffic is two-way, and any challenges that may arise in that collaboration between the two sectors. Rigobert, would you like to go first?
Yes, Ashma, thank you. Thank you to go first for this question. This is very important question to know how we can make a good collaboration between civic tech actors and digital actors, because yes, it is very important to create a framework of collaboration with these two actors, because when we talk about civic tech, we have some understanding to think that is engineering aspect or technology innovation application, write some codes and so on. Yes, it is really like that, because in the civic tech, people who develop tech for civic society, but also the civil society should try to, for people on civil society, the collaboration between the two actors, digital right and civic, I think first we can develop the frameworks of collaboration very clearly. The second, try to have a lot of context that we can chat and discuss directly between civil society actors and digital actors to understand the real problem. For example, when people develop an application that can help, for example, understand the issues raised by GRAS, for example, when you send the money, maybe on an application possible to lose your money, it's the same for some company who make mobile money in Africa. Then this is very important to explain, for example, when people come, for example, to kick the net and raise the issues, for example, I lost my money, for example, cybersecurity problem. It's very important for GRAS and the community to understand how what is the mechanism between sender and receiver. It's very important to know. And I think communication, discussion, and so on can help to avoid the violation in civic tech. And then it will be good for digital right actor to say, yes, we have a good space, we can work very well, we can collaborate very well. Also, the organization can train vice versa. That say civil society actors, civic tech actors, please, can organize the training to raise some issues in the sectors. And it is the same for digital right actors to organize sometime the training and inform the civic tech actor, this is the emergency of some issues in our community, how we can rate it, this is our work on that, this is some recommendation. We can make the advocacy to this organization, to this institution to ensure that all is okay. I think for me, this is what we can do to have a better collaboration between these two actors. Thank you.
Thank you, Rigobert. Capacity building, capacity building, capacity building. Peace, what's your take on how the two sectors can collaborate better and any challenges that we foresee?
Okay, so thank you, Ashna. I think civic tech and digital rights organizations and communities need to really work together, because I think for civic tech to be a successful initiative, for a tool to be successful, we need to have the element of digital rights embedded in, and digital rights looked at. When we look at civic tech, we're looking at a large scale of people participating. We're looking at many people being participants. We're looking at everyone being engaged. And when I talk about everyone, I mean both women and children. We're looking at the marginalized engagement. So that means that we need to look at the digital rights. So they're accessing the platform. We know that, yes, they're able to navigate, they're able to put their views, they feel free to fight and tackle some of the issues that they have in their communities. But at the same time, we need to have, sometimes in sub-Saharan African communities, or we know very well the patriarchal societies that women live in. So some of those things that happen in the offline are still taken in the online. So when we talk about the civic tech, we need to look at some of these issues that sometimes are not looked at. And I think that civic tech, when these tools are being developed at the very beginning, that's when the collaboration needs to start. Right, organizations or experts, the private, and I see my connection is bad, so maybe I can just put off my video. Yes, I hope it's still on. So then these parties need to all be together so that they can discuss and look at how it will work. How will the different people, individuals, be able to use, navigate, and be able to participate, be able to get social change that they're looking for. So I think they all need to be part of it, because most times the tools that we create are not inclusive. The tools that we create are not gender responsive. The tools that we create probably work for the people who created it. So I think all the parties are involved, all the different sectors are part of it. And I think one of the challenges that I see in this with civil tech and digital rights is most times the sustainability of these initiatives, of these tools. Most of them are donor funded, and it's running maybe for 3 years, it's running, it is ending, it is not going on, and yet that was the 2 years just getting people to know about it, building capacity, like you mentioned. So I think the sustainability is one of the challenges that it faces, and also not being inclusive, because most times very few people are engaged in this. And Ashna, if you may allow, I would like to give a project that WUGNET has been implementing for the last, for over 3 years, that has been funded by CIDA and collaborated by CIPESA. It is a SMS platform that brought together communities and leaders, the government, for them to engage and look at some of the issues that they have in their communities. Let's talk about the roads. Let's talk about the public good. So this SMS platform had communities registered, and they would send these issues that they have, and then these issues would be sent to the platform, and then we get the duty bearers, the leaders, to respond to some of these issues. But definitely it has had great challenges. You all know about the gender digital divide. This technology, everybody needs to participate, in this conversation. So then definitely we've had the problem of women and girls not participating, and this project definitely was being implemented in the rural communities. Not many of them have volunteers who could help sometimes to they would go to a community volunteer to really put in their issues, so that these issues would be put on the platform. And also the issue of digital literacy, they're not able to navigate, they're not able to use, even if they own these phones. So I think these are some of the issues, the challenges that are faced by these tools, by the civic tech. So I just think that it's very important for every stakeholder, the civil society organization, the private and public sector, the government, to be part of these initiatives. Thank you, Ashna.
Thank you very much, Peace. Indeed, we should definitely be mindful of the offline realities that tend to be mirrored online, with initiatives that focus on civic participation or civic tech-based and digital rights, and ensure that whatever collaboration comes out of it leaves no one behind. Yeah. Grace, what's your take on how we can foster more collaboration between the two sectors and any challenges?
Thanks, Ashna. I think one of the, I'll just highlight maybe one or two, but just thinking on my feet, one of it is the whole element of like documenting breaches, documenting abuses on power. And we find that mobile technologies really offer a very wide range of possibilities for documenting rights violations and abuses. And the good thing is that now anyone can actually become a citizen journalist. So those can be actually used because, you know, when you document, then you have concrete evidence, and that evidence can actually be used to ensure that there are concrete outcomes. I think also there's need to encourage activism. And I tell people activism is not bad, because most of us enjoy the rights that we do because some people are activists somewhere and pushed for them. So encourage, you know, that activism for collective impact. And for example, online activism has in many cases shown, you know, to create a critical mass that support particular concerns, particular issues, and people are mobilized and are able to put in their voices, as opposed to say if they had to do that in a physical sense. So, and then of course the other way that I see, and which is an issue, especially when people are going into elections, there's already, you know, we have that threat of disinformation, you know, fake news, misinformation. And, you know, sometimes people who are not very conversant with tech are not able to tell what is fake news, because some of it actually is presented in ways that sometimes you're not able to tell what the difference is. For example, if, you know, you read an item that, you know, has the same logo as CNN or a website that mimics CNN, and sometimes it's CNN. So for example, but the colors are the same and the logo is the same. You know, it takes a very keen eye to distinguish that and tell that this is a fake, you know, it's a fake website that's mimicking the legitimate one. So I think, again, you know, in similar fashion, and points of, you know, continuous discussion is, can we explore a decentralized way, for example, to verify information? How do we bring on board people to become fact checkers, so that whatever is being, we are able to actually tell that this is not true, this is fake news? Again, we have to think about that. And of course, in terms of collaboration, you know, we need like the you know, the techs to support our civic work. For example, you know, you get a phishing message and you think it is right, only to click on it and it wipes out your information. So can we collaborate? Is it possible to have sustainable collaborations or ways that we work together, so that we also, in our African context, we have civic or we have tech organizations that can help us respond to such things, so that as we enjoy our digital rights, we also need to have, we also need to enjoy digital resilience. And I know you also highlighted the issue of, Ashna, you did raise the issue of challenges. And there are many challenges. And I think one of them that I do not want to forget is that we have gotten into a data protection era, but where everyone, again, has been talking about the data being the next oil, or the oil that's going to drive many industries, including elections. And I think one of the things and one of the challenges we have to think about is the whole concept of, digital or digital ethics, that we need to start thinking about digital ethics that will prevent the violation of our digital rights. For example, when data is collected, and data is collected, especially because of also the threat of terrorism, you find that even ordinary guards are collecting your data when you get into a building. In that, we need to start discussing what needs to be observed as basic rights. For example, are they able to seek my consent before they collect certain data? If I don't want to give them my data, but I have a business in that building, can I be allowed to just get, because I don't feel comfortable that they are collecting this data because they might sell it? And of course, we must continue agitating for the right to be forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Grace. In some tech sectors, indeed, data is the new oil, but I think many who have experienced oil as a resource, or oil as as anything, know that it also comes with curses. Gabriela, closing points on how we can foster more collaboration across the two sectors, and how to overcome challenges in said collaboration.
I mean, I think, everybody's well covered a lot of the different ways to collaborate. I think it's moving on from what Rigobert said, and some others as well. One of the key posed solutions in much policy on data and AI challenges talks about privacy by design or equality by design, and really what they mean is rights protection by design. I mean, that's one of the biggest solutions to a lot of the wicked problems born of technology. Yet who's going to be doing that design? Who's embedding those design processes? It's technologists, civic technologists and private sector technologists, but really civic technologists are the ones who should be leading the way in promoting those kinds of solutions, because who else is going to? And they have a lot to learn, obviously, from digital rights activists, and how to do that, how to frame their design processes actually in a way that is rights thinking and rights protecting. So one of the things we're developing at Open Up is, an adaptation of the normal human-centered design processes and agile processes that we talk about in our development, to think of what we call like human, which is like human and impact-centered design processes, so that our actual design process is focused from the very beginning, not just on user needs, but potential impacts on our users and our communities. So not just our users as well, trying to literally, broaden the scope of how we perceive impact to communities at large. And I think, embedding that in the actual design process is a really practical way of forwarding a lot of these ideas that generally just get talked about, do you know what I mean, and written about. So that's one of the things we're thinking about. But, everybody covered the details of the areas, capacity building and all those things. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gabriela. I think, as we've had for the past 90 minutes, new technologies and innovations are often hailed as solutions that can enable participation in governance processes, promote transparency and accountability, and attempt to bridge the digital divide. However, as we've learned, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, and in some instances where governance or democracy deficits exist, these same technologies present very distinct challenges. Many Africans and African governments have been faced with emerging threats, including taxation, surveillance, online gender-based violence, data breaches, and unlawful disclosure, network disruptions, and shrinking civic space. The discussions has covered themes on governance and civic participation, threats to free expression, privacy, access and affordability, and inclusion, as well as surveillance and data privacy. We haven't quite touched on it, but online content regulation, taxation regimes, and internet shutdowns are all part of the wider discussions around the opportunities for and challenges for digital rights and civic technology. Where to from here? What can change? That is probably the $1 million or more question. But the panelists and the participants have pointed to some points that we could ponder, being responsive to changing environments, changing contexts, changing dynamics. What works in Kampala will not work in Cape Town or Nairobi, etc. Capacity building, inclusiveness that cannot be said enough, be it from a gender perspective, be it from a race perspective, be it from a rural-urban perspective, be it from a sexual orientation perspective. Something else that's emerged is consideration for mixed technologies. Yes, we can load the internet as a beacon, but SMS, print and broadcast media remain relevant in the African context. Policy and practice reforms and advocacy around that is crucial, targeted at both private sector and government sector alike. For technologists, usability and design should be human rights responsive, and impact, let's document what works and what doesn't work. It definitely always provides room for learning. So thank you so much, Peace. Thank you so much, Rigobert. Thank you so much, Gabriela. And thank you so much, Grace, for the insights that you've shared. And thank you to our attendees as well.
Usukhamba ubhekana nempendulo ngaphandle konke okudingayo kukhona ngaphakathi kwakho ngazukholwe konke ungazukholwe nanamanga enkundleni zokuxhumana uzobezwe bethi bephinde bethi wena uvala amadleve wenze ngathi awuzwanga ngoba ungazukholwe konke ungazukholwe nanamanga enkundleni zokuxhumana. It's kind of sad how people think social media is the truth. Ngoba ama-celebrity ngeke aposte mayekhala ngeke aposte izinhlungu. It's kind of sad how we put pressure on ourselves to reach the roof. Thina sasakhohlwa ukuthi sinamuva liyahambukwa uthatha isikhathi ukwakha umuzi brick by brick yekufane nosomezi just by a click ubona abanye ungajahi step by step kuthatha isikhathi ukwakha umuzi brick by brick yekufana noma ihlala just by a click ubona abanye ungajahi step by step usukhamba ubhekana nempendulo ngaphandle konke okudingayo kukhona ngaphakathi kwakho ngazukholwe konke ungazukholwe nanamanga enkundleni zokuxhumana uzobezwe bethi bephinde bethi wena uvala amadleve wenze ngathi awuzwanga ngoba ungazukholwe konke ungazukholwe nanamanga enkundleni zokuxhumana iqiniso lithi I don't wanna be a victim. Umuntu athatha impilo yakhe ngenxa ze-algorithm. Iqiniso lithi, I don't wanna be a victim. For the likes, for the followers, double tapping, got us forgetting the vision. Iqiniso lithi, I don't wanna be a victim. Umuntu athatha impilo yakhe ngenxa ze-algorithm. Iqiniso lithi, I don't wanna be a victim. For the likes, for the followers, double tapping, got us forgetting the vision. 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 Thank you.